A/B testing is using statistics in order to determine the results. But we should remember that when we do an A/B test and we get that the B treatment is better than the A treatment, this does not mean that for sure it's better, because we just said that A/B testing relies on statistics. And in statistics we have probabilities. We use statistics because we can't really know for sure, for 100%, the answer. So even if an A/B test tells us that one of the treatments is better than the control, or the other way around, that the control is better than the treatment, then this does not necessarily mean that this is the correct state of the world. Therefore, there are methods that people have came with in order to mitigate. The question is whether this mitigation is good or maybe it's causing us some damage. In a blog post, in an article made by Twitter Tech Blog, they discuss the concept of AAB testing, which is have a second control. You have the first control, you have another control, and then you have the treatment or the number of treatments that you have. I will take you directly to the conclusion. This only adds complexity. A second control or an alternate control only adds complexity to experiments. And if you have enough traffic to have two controls, just make your control twice as big with the traffic. But let's go a little bit inside the process and just describe what AAB means and how we get there. So the article is named The Implications of Use of Multiple Controls in an A/B Test. And they specify that, as we said, the conclusions of A/B testing may not always be correct, because in hypothesis testing we have type 1 and type 2 errors. Type 1 is the false positive, where we reject a null hypothesis. Basically we say there is a change in the world, but there is no real change actually. In type 2 it's false negative, where we say the world is the same, control is good, but actually we had an effect. And these type 1 and type 2 errors are impossible to completely avoid, as we said, because we use statistics. So let's make two controls, and we could have two ways to utilize this control. But before we get to two controls, we might do something which actually I like and I think is good with two controls. AA tests. With AA tests, we only test the control. We test our system, we test our tooling, we test that our experiment passes at all. We test that everything works. It's basically a unit test, okay, to the experiment that we want to do. With AA test, we just do the control twice and see how our tooling works, how validating our technical services, estimate how much traffic we would actually need for the A/B testing, and see that everything is working, spank removal working, etc. And now, so AA test is a good practice. A/B tests, separating the control into two, they've actually made some checks on this, and they tested two approaches. Twitter. First approach is that we are going to reject the null hypothesis. Basically, we are going to say that treatment is better only if both control 1 and control 2 have a statistical significance change with the treatment. In approach 2, if we don't think that control 1 represents the population well, we'll just use control 2. You already see the problem with this, because there is going to be a bias and people will just say, okay, control 2 proved to be significant, let's take this one. Basically, in all the analysis that Twitter has done, they found that AAB, or double control or alternate control, is inferior to just taking twice the traffic and placing it in a single control. This makes sense actually. The actual numbers is that with the single control, but half the size of the population, they had 41% of false negative. With an alternate control with the check one and only if the second one significant, they take the second one, they had 32% false negative, which is better. But when they doubled the traffic for the control, they got 25% type 1 false negative, which is the best out of all of this. So the conclusion is, if you have enough traffic, just double the size of your control group. Do not do A/B tests. They will only make things more complicated. You want simple things. But AA practice is good to test your system and see that everything is working fine.